Okay, let's do it. This is the chapter review, chapter 1, materials 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, and 3.3. You should be wrapping up that homework over the weekend and definitely jumping in on this and getting as much practice on the review as possible before the test next week. So, as you can see, the first question, these are not going to be in the same order as the way you will see it on the computer. It regenerates a different order every time. But my first one is an interval notation, and notice that I also printed us the question ID for, I don't think you can do that until you review the quiz at the end. So once you submit the quiz, it'll start, maybe it will identify as you go, I don't know. But either way, this one is from section 4. Obviously that was our graphing inequalities. And all it's asking us to do here is to identify what the interval notation is from the graph. Remember, we talked about 3 different ways for talking about showing and looking at inequalities, and that is graphing, interval notation, and set notation. All they're asking here is for the interval notation. So if we look at this interval, it starts with a bracket, which means it's going to be a bracket on your interval as well, and it starts at 0. So you're always reading your graph from left to right. It starts from 0, and it goes forever, right? That arrow goes in that direction forever, and we represent forever or infinite number as infinity. Silly me. I don't know what I'm saying there, but yeah, you get the point. It goes on forever, so we want to represent that with infinity. So I also went ahead and had them print the question answers as well, but you would click D and be done. And so for the test, I assume it'll be the same process, and you'll just be circling or check marking that. Okay, so number 2. I'll skip this up a little bit. Number 2 is solving using the principles together. It looks like we're doing multiple step equations, right? If you think about what it's saying. So we always want to read the instructions. Don't forget to check your answer. This comes from, here's our question ID, comes from section 1. So we're in the solving mode. And so I'm just going to kind of jump around and find a place to write it out. Maybe right down here. So we've got -4 plus 6x equals 6x minus 4. Already it's jumping out at me, but I'm going to go through the steps here. I like to move my variable first. And as I do that, notice that as we come down to the next level, we had this on a quiz today, or some of y'all have, that this is a true statement. So it is all real numbers. That's the option we choose there, remember, for that one. And if it's not a true statement, that's the no solution. So we'll see that one here in a minute. Scooting on up here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. So again, we're still in section 1, it looks like, another solving equations. So I'm going to write it where we've got some more room. 9x plus 50 equals 3x minus 22. This is where we didn't do this before, and I should have, but remember we go through and label to get started. Make sure you identify your wall. I just recognized that that was that special case when I jumped on it. So let's do that here. So we draw a wall. Label everybody. This is label out your variables and label out your numbers. And then you make a decision on where you're going to go. So once you make that decision, like variables are going to go over here, you're going to move the 3. We talked about that in class, that I prefer to keep my variables positive. So again, notice that things are still lining up, and in this position, as this one is moving and canceling out and gone, I'm going to scoot that -22 in towards the wall more. We're always working towards the wall. And again, relabel, and I do that so that we can recognize that we want variables on one side, numbers on the other. And since we went to the left with the variables, we want to go to the right with the numbers. And we do that with opposite signs. Remember, if this is a positive, we use a negative to move left or right with adding and subtracting. So same down here, this is a positive 50, so I'm going to use a negative 50 to make it go away. So that 50 and negative 50 makes a 0. That's what we're showing up here where that 22 scooted in. because those 3 x's cancel out and those 6 x's canceled out. So we scoot in again. No. Aha. So we got to make sure to, I love my erasable pens, y'all. Do the step here as you move that 50. You combine it with the number that's sitting on the other side, if there is a number sitting on the other side. And since there is, we're going to combine it by, in this case, they're the same sign, so we're going to add and keep their common sign. Remember, 2 negatives stay negative when adding or subtracting. So again, there we go. We've got division, and remember that's the same sign. So opposite signs when we're adding or subtracting. Same sign when you're multiplying or dividing. You should have that in your notes. Again, what is happening here? Sorry. I didn't actually do any of the division. I'm trying to talk more than I am actually doing the math here. So again, we subtracted, or in this case added because they were same sign. Divide by 6, and you'll get your negative 12. Okay, so that's question 3. Pull this back down so you can see it again. We're looking at another inequality, which puts us in section 4, back right here. There's our ID. So inequality, this is going to be solving an inequality. So if we come up here, remember that solving inequalities is just like solving equations. We use our same rules, that the inequality is now our wall. And so our goal again is to get variables on one side, numbers on the other, and it doesn't matter which side, but in this case we've already got a variable on this side and a number on that side, so we just need to move this extra guy to go sit with his number friend by subtracting. Because remember, when you're adding, since this is a positive and it's not attached to the variable, we're going to use opposite signs to make it go away, because a positive 13 and a negative 13 make a 0, which is what we want. We want to make it go away. And then 8 minus 13, pop that in your calculator. I would love for y'all to already know these rules, but again, that's going to mean subtraction because one's positive, one's negative. But by all means, grab your calculator and do it with your calculator. So we go over here. We see that this is our format, and we come over here and look for the multiple choice answers that match that, and it's going to be this one. And notice that I don't have to type any of the rest of the stuff in. I just need to write the -5. You can see that in the answer solution right here. And then we're going to talk about graphing it. So remember, this is going to point in the direction that you're going to shade. So it's going in that direction. We go and find our option that has a -5. All of them are marked at -5. These two have soft parentheses. These two have hard parentheses or brackets. So if you look at that, you've got to make sure you remember those rules, that a hard parentheses or hard brackets includes the equal sign, and these right here are soft. So I'm going to write that right here. These are soft. This one is actually going to be soft in the other direction. This is soft, and this is soft in that direction, and this one's hard in that direction, and this one's hard in that direction. Again, this is our answer, but just reminding you of those soft brackets and hard brackets and soft parentheses. So we choose answer B, and that's not going to always be the same answer, so be paying attention to the details there. I know some of us kind of got this one or a -1 wrong with the quiz. It was a -1. It was that one on the quiz on the board. So remember that that's pointing in this direction. So if you were to look at the graph, I'll put them down here so I'm going to match you. If you look at the graph, that's a soft parentheses, and it's pointing in that direction, so we're going in that direction. Most of y'all understood that it was an infinity concept and a -1, but you have to remember to read from left to right. So a lot of people had the infinity sitting over here or a positive infinity. We are coming from negative infinity, that's where that indicates, to -1. So this is that example. I think that's just important for y'all to have that in your mind. But then this is over here. We're going to look at these options. You graph it. You don't have to, obviously, with multiple choice options. They're going to I'm not going to be looking for the graph this time. So we're looking for soft. Notice that there's no line under the equal sign, so it's going to be soft. And it's going in that direction, so I'm actually starting at the 3. And so in order to represent that, I grab the one that has a soft parentheses with the 3 starting it. These are the ones that are with the 3 in the starting position, and I'm going to grab the soft one. And it really kind of concludes, I mean, that kind of narrows down my choices real quick because the infinity is the same, both sides. Okay, so again, this was just another example from our quiz. Oh, here's these. I almost quizzed us on some of these just so y'all could practice them because they are on the exam. But so for this one, again, this is from section 2. There's 2, I think, from section 2. So we look at this and we want to get this K by itself. I'm just going to rewrite it. So I want that K by itself. It's got a 2 attached to it, and a lot of y'all wanted to go ahead and divide off that 2. We cannot do multiplication or division in solving equations until the very last step. So I need to isolate this whole term before I can even start trying to get that K by itself. In order to isolate that term, I have to undo the term that's sitting next to it, which is positive, so we're going to use a negative. All of this section was just encouraging you to practice your rules of understanding how the add and subtract rules process in the multiply and divide. So now we're down to this K, and it still has that 2 attached to it. When you divide off the 2, and you've got multiple terms over here because we have not combined these, S and W aren't going to combine, so they're going to have to sit just alongside of each other, so it's S minus 2W. There's nothing you can do, just write them in line. When you have multiple terms, then you are dividing the whole side by 2. We'll get into when you need to break it off and do 2 under each term another time. Okay, so that's it so far. And that's the first 6, and I'm at 12 minutes. I'm kind of tempted to pause it and do this in sections just to make sure it loads. So let me hold tight. I'm going to pause it or stop it here.